Hello guys and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time visiting, please be sure to check out my other videos to see if any of them might help you out with a do-it-yourself repair. YouTube provides me with statistics that show only about 10% of my video views come from subscribers. It would really help out with YouTube's algorithm to promote my videos if you would just click subscribe below. It costs you nothing and I would appreciate the support. Let's get on to today's video.
Alright guys, today we're going to be working on a 2005 Honda Pilot. She's got 230,000 miles on the clock. This car belongs to my girlfriend. She bought this car used from a gentleman and his wife who had several kids, so when I take the back seat out, don't judge her. Going after today is the car has been, every now and then it has a couple of slow starts, slow cranks, long cranks I guess you can call it, and then there's sometimes that the car will sputter and would start getting misfire codes on check engine light. Went over a couple of different things and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a fuel delivery problem, so we're going after the fuel pump today, which is located underneath the back passenger seat on the left side behind the driver's seat. So that seat is going to have to come out. I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a minute. When I get to what I think is the problem, which is going to be the sock or filter that's over the bottom of the fuel pump at the bottom of the tank, I'm expecting that thing to be black and clogged up. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the actual pump itself. I did buy a universal repair kit that's got a couple of different size socks for different Hondas and different applications. It has the correct sock for this car and a mechanical fuel pump for it as well. I'm not going to change the fuel pump, I do not believe. I think I'm just going to go after that sock. I'd rather have Honda original in this rather than a Chinese knockoff. If it turns out that after this repair happens and we start seeing sputtering and misfiring again and long cranks, I may go back and pull the fuel pump and go ahead and replace the actual pump itself. So let's get started taking that back seat out, show you what's involved. All right, so the first step is going to be remove the second row seat behind the driver's seat. You're going to need to lay it down forward and pull it as far forward in its track as it can go, because we're going to get to these bolts in the back. There's one there and there's one on the other side. These will have a cover on them like this, and you can just pry that off with a screwdriver. It's not a big deal. Same for that side, but that one's missing on this vehicle, so it makes our job a little bit easier. Then you're going to have four 14mm bolts that are going to hold the track down, and then I'm going to go ahead and break those loose and get it out, and then we're going to pull the seat out. Alright, and the front seats are exactly the same. They have these caps that fit in here. You pry those off, get to that 14mm, and you have exactly the same on the other side. Alright guys, once you have the seat out, there is a port here where the carpet actually tilts back, and I assume that's made so you can test, see if you're getting voltage at your fuel pump. But in order to get the whole thing out, looks like Honda provides you pre-cuts to go around this whole corner like that, so you can get the carpet peeled away from it. Once you do that, there are two Phillips head bolts here that have to come out, and then this whole little cap will come off. Let me get this piece of carpet out of the way. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, and with that carpet, the little notches cut on it, be sure when you're cutting not to cut your wire that runs underneath it. But once you get to this point, you see there's two more Phillips head bolts. Go ahead and get those out. Alright, and once we're to this point, we have everything pulled out and ready to go. We're going to flip this up here, and we're going to look underneath it, and you see you have an electrical connection here. It's got a pinch on one side. I'll probably have to use two hands to use a screwdriver, but we're going to disconnect it right there, and we're going to be able to move this whole metal piece out of the way and get down to our fuel pump. Alright, and with the electrical connection disconnected, you can just pull this all out of the way and lay it aside. Now we need to go to the fuel line. This is where it goes back to your engine from here. This connector here, you need to pinch the two orange pieces, and as you're pinching with the other hand, you pull this piece back this way. Now keep in mind that these things are under high pressure, so if you've been running the car, you need to let it sit for a little bit, let that pressure bleed off. If you take that apart after the car's been running, it's liable to spray gas all over your interior and get in your eye. So I need both my hands. Let me set the camera down and get that apart. Alright guys, and with that disconnected, what we need to do is that ring that goes around here needs to be screwed off in a counterclockwise direction, just like you're unbolting anything else that's not reverse thread or anything. But before we do that, I'm going to use a vacuum cleaner and some brake clean, and I'm going to get some of this dust and mess off of the top of this, because when I go to disassemble this, I don't want that falling back down into my fuel tank. So I'm going to come back when I get that done, and then we're going to bump that ring off, and we're going to get that pulled out. All right, with that off, piece of a broke necklace we found. With that off of the dirt off now, you see it was actually white on top. This is the underneath your car here, so any road grime is going to get on top of your gas tank here. Now our next step is going to be to, like I said, rotate this. They have tools and things that you can rent to get that off. What I'm going to do is use a screwdriver like this, and I'm going to come here with a hammer, and I'm just going to tap it. Don't want to break anything, just be persistent. Once you get it broke loose, it should be a little bit easier to go. See it starting to move. And I'm just going to keep doing that till I can hand do it, and it's just going to thread off that way. Let's move on. All right, with that ring removed, we're ready to go ahead and pick this up out of the tank. There is a rubber gasket that's underneath that you need to keep in mind. I think we can just might have to come under and pry a little bit, but we just need to get it pulled out now. Here we go. All right, there is now this loose. I have a bucket over here inside the car with me. I'm just going to pick it up and put it straight in the bucket. Try not to make any more of a mess with the gas than I have to. You hear it draining out, just hold it for a second. It's got a float in there. Try to get around that. Okay. And be very careful, you don't want to bend that. And then we're going to put it in our bucket. All right, with that out of the car, what we need to do is take this bottom part off, and you see it has the connections for your float right here that go up here. And there's another one behind it, in front of it. No, correction, behind it here. I'm gonna go ahead and pull that one off too. It's just these little pinch connectors here. All right, with those connectors disconnected, there's 3 tabs here, here, and here. I've already got it started just to make sure I was telling you the right thing. But this is one of those you're gonna need kind of 3 hands to get to it. You gently pull these apart so they don't break, and you're gonna gently wiggle on this until you get it free, like so. As I'm pulling up, I'm looking here. You see this loop? I'm going to go ahead and get those wires out of that. That's what's holding me up on the inside one. And there you go. Okay, looking inside the assembly here, this is what I believe the problem is with this car. This is your filter or sock or whatever you want to call it at the bottom. And this is supposed to be kind of a pinkish color and clear, or maybe in this case it was tan. So you can see where is it sucking gas out of the bottom of the fuel tank. For 230,000 miles, it has just gradually filled itself up with crap. So we're going to go after getting this off. I'm still debating on whether or not I'm going to change the fuel pump itself. I don't think the fuel pump is bad. I think that this is what's causing the hard starts and stalls and misfires. So I'm going to see about getting this off. Let me look how to do that so I don't tell you anything wrong, and I'll be back when I'm ready. All right, guys, I've got this pulled off. How that's held on, you can see this little hole that goes through the whole thing, and then there's this little nipple nub, whatever you want to call it, that has one of these type fasteners over the top of that, and I just got a screwdriver under it, just popped it off. The kit comes with a new one, so that's not a big deal. So once I get underneath here and I'm looking at how this mates up, you see this channel here, and it has a small gap on one end that it will go on like this, and that gap coincides with the end right here, and there's a small hole inside of your fuel pump there. So either it lets a small amount of fuel in or it returns fuel back to the tank. I'm not exactly sure. Somebody in the comments tell me what that does. But with our replacement part, what I've been debating is whether or not I was going to actually change the fuel pump, since I don't think the fuel pump is bad. But when I look at the replacement sock on the end, you see where it goes down. It does not have this same part on it. So I looked further into the kit, and it has this rubber cap that's designed to go onto the bottom of the fuel pump like this, and it has that built into this already. So we're debating on whether or not we're going to just change the whole fuel pump out and put the Chinese version in. I think I'm going to stick with the Honda original. If we have a fuel pump problem in the future, I'll have my Chinese knockoff in the drawer ready to go. So what I'm going to do is going to slip this over. I'm going to make sure that everything, actually the pickup here coincides with the bottom like this. And then I'm going to put the new sock on the bottom like this. And then the replacement one of these, I'm going to tap that on, and we're going to start putting this back, reattach the electrical connections to get it back inside the car. I'll show you that when I get finished with it. Okay guys, I've got this new assembly put back together. With this knockoff, since it's not the Honda original part, there's a little trickier to do, but I believe I have it where it's going to work fine. Pull this back here, and you can see that nub on the bottom of the fuel pump, and I have that little snap ring over it. I just had to go in there with like a micro screwdriver and hold one end down, push the other side, and that's holding this whole assembly on there. And again, this is pushed down as far as it can go. If you have this kind, this is what you wound up with if you were buying this from eBay or something. The one thing I would warn you is to make sure that this gap is lined up with that groove that's in the bottom of the actual mechanical pump there. All right, we're ready to put this back in the car. First things, we're going to have to get this float assembly back on and get everything plugged back in. I'll come back when I have that done. All right, guys, this is reassembled and ready to go back in the car. Got my electrical connections hooked back up. All right, I'll give you guys one caveat I found doing this. When I was sliding this back in at the bottom of this piece, there is a rubber or a nozzle that's got a rubber O-ring in it, and it's going to fit into this blue piece that's in the bottom. So I suggest you just put this on the ground or on a sturdy workbench. Don't hammer anything, of course, and just push really hard until it's just rubber O-ring squeaking, and you can feel it with your fingers as you're pushing. And at the end, you want to make sure that you have each one of these snaps all the way around, back where they belong. All right, we're going to get this back in the car. It's going to be reverse of what I showed you. Just be careful making sure that you got your float. Don't let that get bent when you're putting it back in the gas tank. And I'm going to come back when I have everything reassembled and when we fire it up and see how we've done. All right, guys, like I said, the install is the reverse. One thing I probably should have done that I didn't is I should have marked where this was in relation to the ring that goes around in relation to where it is at the top here, to make sure that you have it back down as tight as it'll go. I got it till I couldn't move it anymore, and I'm just gonna have to call that good since I made that mistake at the beginning. So got everything back together, got my electrical connection back on. This is ready to go for a test. I would go ahead and test it before I put everything back together and your seats back in it. The first thing that we're going to do, since that's been emptied of fuel now, is we're going to prime it a couple times, and all you're going to do is just turn the key to run, and you'll hear the fuel pump come on, zzz, off, and then it'll turn off, turn the ignition off, back on. Do that 2 or 3 times to charge the system back up, and then we'll go for a crank. My lovely assistant now is going to prime it for me. Okay, off, prime it. All right, and we're going to try to crank her up. Now go ahead. And she fires right up. All right, guys, I'm going to get this put back in where it belongs, get that carpet back down and get the seat back in it, and we're going to call that a win. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. Thank you again to my lovely assistant who helped with some of the camera work and all, but she had to because this is her car. All right, I'll catch you guys on the next video.